Hello, friends. Jon-Mark Patterson, the Reactionary Hippie, back for more. Why am I here already again when I take so long in between videos typically? Well, I made a decision. The signs of social decay are so obvious out there that I have to comment more often. But that does not mean I'm going to be a pessimist or a doomer all the time either, because deep down I'm an optimist. Anybody with 6 children is an optimist by definition, right? By social decay, I mean just the signs of collapse that you see on the streets of an ordinary town. I live in a city in northern Colorado, Loveland, Colorado, with 80,000 people, and traditionally higher than average income, higher than average socioeconomic status, not without its pockets of people with challenges and problems. But the streets of our downtown are just overrun with transients, not local people who are down on their luck, not the homeless that my mom has worked with for decades, but a whole new class of people using drugs and engaging in strange antisocial behavior. I mean, like walking up and down the streets for hours at a time with 8 layers of clothing and dragging a cart full of belongings. Just strange zombie-like behavior almost. And the sad thing is you see that increasingly in the way people who are not on the streets hold themselves in public and on the streets. They almost try to project either a total lack of interest or almost hostility to the rest of the world. Just a lot of anger and attempt to be ugly and flee from what's beautiful. And it makes me sad. I think we should set a good example for other people and uplift other people and try to show goodness and beauty in how we hold ourselves and how we act in the world. And I just see less and less of that in the world right now. Yeah, there you go, social decay. I suppose with election less than a week away, election day is Tuesday, although it seems strange to talk about election day in a time when we really have election weeks, especially here in Colorado with all mail and early voting. The ballots have been out for some time now, and a high percentage have been returned. Hello, Emmeline.
Hey, Daddy.
I'm making a video, Bean, so I'm going to have to ask you to leave in a minute. Anyway, I talked about the election quite a bit in the run-up to the 2020 election, but I don't know. I mean, even then, I didn't want to talk about the horse race aspect of Team Red versus Team Blue, that sort of thing. It seemed more important to focus on the bigger trends that the election was reflecting and revealing. And that's what I'll do here, too. Although if you want some predictions, I will say the polls are increasingly unreliable simply because a lot of people simply won't answer them anymore. The methodology is getting trickier, and they always have problems figuring out, even if they're honest, a good representative sample of the people who are actually going to vote. But I would say don't look at polls, look at the actions of key inside players. And I can tell you that the Republicans are going to do very well when you've got the sitting Vice President, Kamala Harris, Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton and Barack Obama all headed to New York to prop up a Democratic governor. If New York's in trouble, the Republicans are going to have a wave election and probably certainly take over the House, I would say. Likely take over the Senate, and we'll see some other surprises too. But not in Colorado. Democrats are too strong, and our governor is not. I'm not always a fan of his policies and the way he conducts himself, but he's certainly a shrewd politician with unlimited, practically, resources. So he's sure to be elected, and there's only a tiny chance that Senator Bennett will lose as well. So, Emmeline, I'm going to ask you to go out here for a minute,
Daddy.
and thank you for joining me. I'm going to finish my commentary.
Daddy.
Okay, Big Brother's helping the little ones get ice cream. Hey, I don't know anything about editing, so these are all one-take wonders anyway. That said, I don't think it makes too much of a difference, frankly. It seems like our permanent ruling class, many of whom are completely insulated from elections, is kind of the way it is no matter what we do, no matter which party wins. So even if there's a repudiation to the president in power, which I honestly, given his cognitive collapse and the actual effects of his administration's policies, is well deserved. I don't really count on the Republicans to right the ship or make things better when they do win. There is a permanent class of bureaucrats and entrenched people in elite institutions that kind of make things happen the way they want. So, although I don't trust in elections, I also think reality intrudes. You can't have bad policies and things that don't work go forever and ever. Adam Smith said there's a lot of ruin in a nation. And I don't know if that was ever more truly said than if it's applied now to the United States. The United States built up enormous reserves of economic, technological resources and social capital over many, many decades. And we've been gradually wasting and squandering those things for the last several decades. And only now is it really starting to tell. What do I mean? Well, for the last 40 years, we've really had a general trend of interest rates going down, of greater financialization and leverage in every aspect of economic life, of greater specialization, hyper-specialization, offshoring, deindustrialization, this idea that we can keep printing more money and leveraging our assets in ever greater amounts, to have, we think, more and more, and have maybe the illusion of economic success in what's really just kind of a massive produce and dispose of economy. And we've kept this going kind of on the backs of working people, of average people who aren't well connected. So as people who were part of the finance, insurance, real estate industries, and soft-handed lawyers like me, people with what they used to say were knowledge jobs or symbol manipulators, which is kind of patronizing and strange, but okay. People who are white-collar workers and look and work with people and screens for a living, and were quite happy to sit in their basements and do Zoom meetings while expecting everybody else to make sure the power was on, the water came through the pipes, the stores were stocked, the trucks moved, things went on as usual, and kept them insulated and safe from the realities of doing all those things. Well, again, for 40 years, we've favored the people who have promoted more leverage and more financialization, and they have increased efficiency, they think, by deindustrializing our country and offshoring production. And they've attacked the wages of working people with mass immigration, shutting down factories, making it harder and harder for working class or average people to really climb up the ladder. Well, what I think is happening with the inflation we're seeing now, and with the supply chain disruptions we're seeing now, and the ever more panicky pronouncements in foreign policy that we're seeing now, is that the system's starting to come apart. It destroyed resiliency, it destroyed redundancy, it brought gains to a small group of people, and it treated the rest of us as consumers. The highest good would be buying something a little bit cheaper because we outsourced it to China, or driving down wages to keep things cheap in the stores. And then, of course, increasing government subsidies and government involvement in people's lives massively just so they could survive. But not survive with that much dignity or that much sense of the value of work, or sense that things were fair, that if you did work, that if you put in the effort, you could get ahead. That's coming apart. Inflation's not going away. High energy prices are here to stay. I'm concerned about what we're going to see in Europe this summer, because you can't wean yourself off of fossil fuels and deindustrialize and hope that things are going to work out great. I'm kind of worried about Germany in particular, still an efficient country with a massive manufacturing sector, but without natural gas flowing. What will happen to them this winter? So look and see. I think regardless of what happens on Election Day, that's kind of a sideshow. What we're really going to see is an unwinding of a trend that's gone on for 40 years. It's going to be harder to borrow money. It's going to be more difficult to deal with shortages and supply chain problems, things that we haven't experienced in the last 40 years. But there's kind of a bright side to this. I mean, if reality charges back, if the hyperinflation, if you will, of the certain sectors of the economy, the growth of finance and healthcare and education, all those bloated industrial complexes, right? We spend a whole lot more on healthcare and we spend a whole lot more on education than we ever did. But are we a healthier country? No. Our life expectancy is actually declining no matter how much we spend. We have people loaded up on psychoactive drugs and opiates and dying prematurely. We have a mysterious increase in early death that has happened over the last 2 years, and I'll let you speculate on what the factors, there are many, what the factors are behind that. In education, we spend so much and we have an increasingly uneducated, and proudly so, populace. Confirming people in their prejudices seems to be the goal of it all. I would say that a vastly shrunken higher education sector, a humbled healthcare and pharmaceutical sector, would be good things for this country. I also think that this financialization and leverage has led to these huge increases in housing prices that have not been matched by increases in wages and in opportunities, especially for young families. So, you might not like it when you start seeing the value of your house go down, not up. But that's also a chance for some people 25, 30 years old to have a chance to buy a house and form a family. And that's a very good thing. We've distorted our allocation of resources so much, it's hard for young people to get a foot on the ladder. So I think it would be a great thing in many ways if we had a reset where things got cheaper for a change and things got more honest for a change, where there's going to be a higher return to people who actually have productive skills, the people who grow and build and make and move things, the people who can do things that are real no matter what time you live in and what economy you live in, and the people who make a living sitting in their basements collecting paychecks from large companies or large bureaucracies and having Zoom meetings all through a pandemic that they control. They're not going to do as well. And they're not going to go quietly. We're going to have a lot more conflict, both at home and abroad, because of this transition. But in the end, it'll be a good cleansing thing. It'll mean that we have to pivot. We have to stop being passive consumers. We have to stop being people who simply think everything's going to be provided in abundance, the government knows what's right, and we just have to go along. We're going to be put back on our own resources, on our own ingenuity, and we're going to need to teach our children to be humble and hardworking and conscious of what it takes to live, to produce food, to produce energy, to have valuable skills that other people need and will pay for and trade for. So let's look out for each other. Let's be producers. Let's get through the chaos that's coming. Let's not be distracted by sideshows like one day's election results. Let's look at the bigger trends of what we see around us, what's coming, what we need to do as it unravels so we can build something better. Well, there's the Reactionary Hippie reminding you that there are many good things in the past. There are many good resources to choose from and to draw from to build a better present. And I'm deeply optimistic in the long run about the future. We'll go through chaos. We'll go through difficulty. But we'll find ourselves again, not as aimless, TikTok watching consumers waiting for the next government paycheck, but as people with an honest sense of quiet pride in the fact that we know how to do things and that there are opportunities for the children to come and the generations to come. I really thank you for your time. Thanks for letting me wing it tonight. Emmeline did not return, but perhaps she'll make a cameo in later videos.